Mr. President, I'm here to tell you the American people are awake, and we're not buying what you're selling in 2012.
Mia Love in her debut on the national political stage at the Republican convention. She is the mayor of Saratoga Springs, Utah, who is now running for Congress. And she joins us from Salt Lake City. Mayor Love, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
You are a black Mormon who is a favorite of the Tea Party, and you're running to be the first female black Republican ever elected to Congress. For a lot of people who don't know you, how did you turn out the way you did?
Well, my parents immigrated to this country from Haiti with $10 in their pockets, and they worked hard for everything that they have. My parents taught me that we weren't entitled to anything that we didn't own, earn, work for, or pay for ourselves. And I've taken those principles everywhere I've gone. And that's how I ended up where I am.
I want to ask you about that, because there's a story that when you went to college, when you were starting college, your father gave you some marching orders, which have become kind of a guiding principle for you. What did he say?
Well, I took my dad with me because he's the fun parent. And he said, Mia, your mother and I have done everything we could to get you here today. We've worked hard. We've never taken a handout. You are not going to be a burden to society. You will give back. And thank goodness it didn't go in one ear and out the other. And it resonated with me, and it stuck with me.
Let's go through some of the positions that you're advancing in your campaign for Congress, Mayor Love. You want to cut federal spending $759 billion by 2021, including cut food subsidies by 50% or $53 billion, and K through 12 subsidies, another $53 billion, and end college assistance, $33 billion. Question, what happens to all of those millions of people, including a lot of minorities, who depend on those programs?
Well, there are different things. There are different approaches. First of all, that program I put out so that we can start a discussion. I haven't set anything in stone. I want to make sure that I hit the ground running, so we have to start the discussion. But if you take, for instance, education, we're trying to see how much debt we can actually give people, and the option that I'd like to look at is bringing the cost of tuition down so that we give more people the opportunity for higher education.
Yeah, but how do you get these colleges, and I know as the father of 6 kids who I put through college, how do you get the tuitions down?
Well, because federal government has just drowned out the private sector, we've got to do everything that we can because the price of tuition has gone up over 500% since the 80s. If you think about it now, there are people that can't go to college today because the price of tuition is way too high unless they're completely indebted. And so what we have to do is we can bring some of these things to a state level. We can start letting the private sector come in and compete. And I think that those will help drive the price of tuition down. That way we give more people opportunity for higher education.
But Democrats say that you're being hypocritical in this call for ending subsidies for college education, noting that you list between $15,000 and $50,000 in outstanding college loans. How do you respond?
I respond by, I wish I had more options, because we're still trying to pay some of those things off. And what I would love to do is be able to be in a position where I don't have that debt. I want my children to be able to have a college education without having as much debt. And many people are leaving college right now. They're completely indebted, and they can't find work to pay off some of those loans. So what's going to happen with the college education is the same thing that happened with the housing market. We're going to end up being in big trouble when people can't pay back those loans.
Let me talk about another subject. Democrats are accusing your party of waging a war on women, wanting to take away choice on abortion, wanting to cut federal funding for Planned Parenthood, wanting to limit access to insurance for birth control. How do you respond to these charges that Republicans are waging a war on women?
Well, think about this. Under President Obama, I think women have suffered a little bit more. If you think about it, 5.7 million women are out of work. We've gone from 7% unemployment to 7.8% unemployment. I would like federal government to let me keep a little bit of my own money so I can pay for my own contraceptives if I want to.
That's one of the criticisms that Republicans level back at Democrats and say all they're talking about is women's reproductive rights. They're not talking about the economy.
Well, again, to me, it's about choice, and I want more free choice, more liberties than anything else. And so I think that federal government trying to bring this so-called war on women, I think it's just a way to distract from the fact that they're not talking about their failed policies.
But when you when you say choice, Democrats would say your party wants to take away the choice when it comes to abortion.
Well, the role that government does play is to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that we should be protecting life. I am a pro-life person. I believe that you have more choices before somebody ends up getting pregnant. And I think it's important that we're able to have the freedom to exercise that choice. And it's up to you how you want to do that. But I don't think that we should be getting into the weeds on all of this, because I think that these are things that we teach in my own home. These are things that are private. We should just focus on the economy and what's happening with the economy.
Let's talk about your record, because you have been the mayor of Saratoga Springs since 2010. Before that, you were a member of the city council. I want to ask you about your record. On the council, you voted to double property taxes. We should point out Saratoga Springs was a very small town of about 3,000, huge growth to about 16,000. Right. You voted to double property taxes. Now, as mayor, you voted to cut them back some. But are there times when it's just necessary to raise taxes?
Look, our city was an agricultural city. We never set a municipal tax ever. When the housing market dropped, we were faced with a major shortfall. And so what we had to do was, first, we cut spending. We made sure that we cut 30% on some of the lower levels, 67% on the higher levels. And then our property tax, when we set it for the first time, we made sure that it pays for nothing but public safety. There is a role that government plays, and that is to make sure that we are keeping our city safe. So with that being said, we hold the highest bond rating available. I was able to lower taxes as the first year as mayor, and we are on firm financial standing. Our city is doing very well, and I think Washington can take a note from that.
Well, okay, we got a couple of minutes left, and you led me in the direction I wanted to go, which is from your vantage point of Saratoga Springs. What do you think of Washington?
I think Washington's broken. Look at the problems that we have today. Household incomes down $4,000. Gas prices doubled. Unemployment 8%. 14% among Black Americans. $16 trillion of debt. Healthcare premiums going up. And so we've got two choices when it comes to presidential candidates. We've got a president that wants more tax, more regulation, bigger government, and we've got somebody else, Governor Romney, who wants to champion small business. He wants to create 12 million jobs through the private sector, lower the tax rate, broaden the base, affordable education, energy independence. I think when you ask yourself two questions, am I better off than I was 4 years ago? Am I happy with the direction that this country's going? If it's no and no, then the clear choice is President Romney. And Utah supports President Romney, and so do I.
If you're elected, if you're fortunate enough, and you're in a tough race right now against a Democratic incumbent congressman, you say Washington's broken. How would you like to change Washington if you come here?
Well, again, we're going to have to lower the debt. We're going to have to try and do what we can to lower deficit spending.
But if I may, Mayor, I'm less talking about policy and more the way business is done in Washington. How would you try and change that?
Well, I think one of the things is I'd like to see a plan come from both parties. We've got a plan that comes from the Republican Party, but it's been 3 years since we've had a plan come from the Democrat Party. We've got to start working together. You have to understand, where I come from, we run nonpartisan. I don't look at my fellow council member and say, what party affiliation are you, before I figure out what their plans are. We've got to be able to come together and find solutions instead of rhetoric and setting people up against each other in terms of dividing this country. We have to come together as Americans and fix the problems that we're facing today. And we need leadership, not someone who's going to follow from behind, but leadership, and saying these are the solutions. Let's look at these and try and see what we can do to get this country back on firm financial standing.
Mayor Love, I want to thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today, and we'll see how things go for you in November. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Chris.